Hey losers, I'm Coral. Welcome back to my channel. I'm fucking here today with the books that I ended up finishing in March. As always, I have some book stats for you. Mostly for me though, but also like for you fucking weirdos who also like to listen to other people talk about this. What's wrong with you? Just kidding. Thank you. Thank you for indulging me. In total this month, I read 7 books. And there was also one I read quite a bit of, and I ended up like not finishing it on purpose. I like put it down. I was like, I don't like this. So I guess 8 books in total. I read 2,160 pages, which is about 69 pages a day. Nice. I read 5 horror books this month, 2 nonfiction, and 1 that I would say is probably more like fantasy. The oldest book I read this month was published in 1980, then I jumped to 2012, I read a book from 2016, a book from 2019, 2 books from 2022, and 2 books from 2023. I have 2 new releases to tell you about this month. I need to tell you first of all about the 2 books that I don't physically have with me today. So the first one is VenCo by Cherie, Dimaline. This came out, this is a new release, this was a 2023 book. I listened to this on audio. It was provided to me by Libro FM, so thank you so much, Libro FM. This I really fucking liked. I do see some complaints about certain things and like I can agree with it, but like it didn't take away from my enjoyment of the book. This is like a fun witchy scavenger hunt almost. It's about this, it's not a coven yet, but it's this group of witches who are trying to find their missing members to become a coven, and there is also like this fucking ancient witch hunter who's trying to stop that from happening. And so you go through like the backstories of these people, how they became witches, like how they found like the object that is like the thing that leads them to the rest of the rest of their group, the rest of their coven that's like not quite a coven yet, but it's like they need to assemble their coven in like 3 fucking weeks, or I don't know, I can't remember if like they're specific about like what exactly is gonna happen, but it's like it won't be good. So they need to find their new members, and so it's kind of like a scavenger hunt almost. Like they're visiting these places and finding these clues that will lead them to the missing members. I had such a great time listening to this. I thought it was a great audio, and like I don't know, it makes me want to read the rest of Cherie Dimaline's stuff. I know I have her book, I think it's Empire of the Wild, which is like a werewolf book, which I fucking like, I really love werewolf stuff, so like there's no point in me putting it off any longer. It definitely needs to be added to my like cart of books that are priorities in my head. Next on my list is Intruders by Brian Pinkerton. I had an ARC copy of this. It comes out next month, and I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not your mom or your father. I'm not your guardian angel. I'm not your guardian demon, but I didn't really love this book, unfortunately. The premise of this is super interesting. So this is like a story about this man who, he travels for work. So he's out of town. He leaves after a fight with his wife, and he's not hearing from her for the couple of days that he's gone. And while he's kind of worried, he's also hoping that like maybe she's just really pissed off with him. But he comes home and like his wife and his children are gone, and there's no sign of them. They've left everything. They've left cars, they've left purses, wallets, car seats. They're all gone. Parents know. If your child is like an infant, you don't fucking go anywhere without a car seat. It's really troubling to him, and he is kind of fighting the police about like what's going on, and then he finds out that there have been other disappearances, and while he's, you know, looking for his family, more disappearances happen. And it's like very similar circumstances. These people are just gone without a trace. What happened, right? I don't want to give anything away, but like the things that have happened to these people is fun and interesting to me. However, the whole thing felt very, very, very surface level. Like I did not feel connected to anybody because they felt like characters. They didn't feel like people I'm reading about. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was almost like the author was telling me what these characters are doing and how these characters are feeling, and it wasn't like the writing portrayed that to me. You know what I mean? Especially when it's somebody whose family is gone and he is like not, I mean, the author tells me he's worried about it, but he doesn't seem like he's actually very fucking worried about it. You know what I mean? Especially when there are fucking kids involved. Like, he's talking about how he feels bad, he had a fight with his wife. But like, if like Zach and my child disappeared, I would be so fucking like, I just can't, like, the grief that you have for your missing spouse, at least, and like, I don't know, I don't want to be like, you know, people who don't have kids can't understand, but it is like this weird connection that I have with my child that like I don't have with my spouse, and like I would be fucking beside myself, and like that just wasn't portrayed to me in that writing, and so it all just really felt false. It was like it got to the point where it was hard for me to read through it all, but because I had an advanced reading copy, like I felt like I wanted to read through it, even though it might have been a book that I would have put down otherwise. So I don't know. It is alien-y. So there's that. That is something I really was excited about, and that aspect of it was there. But unfortunately, there were other things in the book that I just didn't like really love. So that comes out in April. I never want to tell anybody not to read a book. However, I do like to be fucking straight about the way that I feel about that shit. So then I read Slither by John Halkin. This was published in 1980, and this is a kind of a creature feature. Now when I look at this cover, I see baby gators or maybe salamanders, but it turns out it is neither of these things. Really. They call them sewer worms, but I think in the beginning, at one point someone does say that they're like a type of legless lizard. So there they are. They have this beautiful shining like iridescent skin in the book. But let's see, this is about this guy, Matt Parker, and he's a journalist, and in the very beginning of this book he has this encounter in the sewers with these things, and they end up like attacking him. He's got like, he has to get like reconstructive surgery on his face. He's missing digits and things like that. Like, they're vicious little fuckers, and he's worried that that the population of these things in the sewers are growing, and like nobody else seems alarmed about this. So he kind of makes it his mission to find out what's going on with these, etc., etc. Plot-wise, not a ton going on. I did like the writing. Like, I think John Halkin is definitely somebody that I would pick up a book and like, you know, look forward to it. You know what I mean? But it did lack some of the gruesomeness and ridiculousness that I would expect from a book that looks like this. But that's just, of course, my taste in vintage books. I really like them to be dumb and full of goopy, gross shit. This didn't quite live up to it. There are some parts where the worms are attacking people and animals that are a little bit sad, but it wasn't quite as gory as I would have liked. But all in all, like, not bad. Pretty good, easy to read through. Okay, this is the book that I ended up not finishing this month. This is Break the Bodies, Haunt the Bones. I always say the fucking wrong thing when I'm talking about this book, but this is by Micah and Hicks, and this was published in 2019. This is a book that I've tried to pick up like multiple times and it just hasn't worked out. I read about 100 pages of it, I think a little more, and I just wasn't digging it. This is another book where like the premise of it is really interesting. We're in this town called Swine Hill, and the people there are like infested like with parasitic ghosts, almost like ghosts that they can't rid themselves of, and these ghosts affect their lives For example, the main character, her mom has this ghost that is like very needy, but she burns everybody she touches. And like physically burns, like she will accidentally kill somebody. And her brother has a ghost who really likes to problem solve. And so anything like engineering wise, any sort of like little problem like that, or even at one point he's hired to help the hog factory in this town that processes pigs. He's like hired there to help with their like morale. Like his ghost just really likes to problem solve. And he's rather good at it. So there is some stuff going on in here. Different people have different types of ghosts, and some don't mind it, and some feel like it's kind of a curse. But not everyone can leave the town even. It's kind of interesting. And there is like this central problem, but I don't really want to give that away because I feel like that happens with kind of a reveal. And to whoever, you know, wants to read this in the future, I don't want to spoil anything for them, but you know, I got 100 pages in, and like I feel like this is atmospheric. It does feel like really dreadful and dreary, which is maybe part of the reason why I was like, I don't really want to continue on with this, because I just wasn't excited about it, you know what I mean? And even now it's like I'm really just okay with not ever finding out what any of the solutions to the problems are in this. So I think that's the point where it's like, I know that I just need to put it down because I only have so much time on this mortal plane and I don't want to spend it reading books I like kind of don't give a shit about. So fucking beautiful cover. Then I read The Haunting of Nicolas Cage by Mannone. This came out in 2022 and this was gifted to me by a wonderful friend, Rachel. Thank you so much, Rachel. This was really fucking weird. This was, unlike Break the Bodies, Haunt the Bones, this was a total fucking blast to read. It was weird and goofy and just like all full of all the Cageisms you would come to expect about a ridiculous book about Nick Cage. This is about Nick Cage in a home he once owned in New Orleans. He is there and he's kind of like put himself in seclusion so he can write his great novel, right? But things don't really go well with that, and he starts being haunted by the ghosts who live in the mansion with him. And yeah, it gets kind of fever dreamy almost, like there's just so many weird things going on. It's like, you know, it's not real, but it's so fucking weird. And yeah, like all in all, it was a quick, easy read. It was goofy as fuck, and I had a lot of fun with it. I also picked up Rabid by Bill Wasik and Monica Murphy. I tabbed the shit out of this because there were so many like interesting things that I'm gonna like tell everybody about for like 3 months, even if they don't want to hear about the rabies virus. This is less about like the pathology of the disease and more about the way it has shaped culture, or the way we've reacted culturally to it throughout the years, throughout the centuries, really. So, you know, things like the hair of a dog. Did you know? The hair of the dog, that saying came from like, you know, taking the hair from the dog that bit you, like drinking even though you woke up with a hangover, you know what I mean? Like, but it might make you feel better. So like, you know, things like that. It's really shaped a lot of things in our lives. So like it does talk about the symptoms of rabies, you know, things like how possibly the myths of the vampire and the werewolf came from the rabies virus. Just like so much shit. It talks about certain cases in history, like really famous people who have had the rabies virus. It talks about Louis Pasteur, who created the vaccine for rabies, which is, I mean, still, if you get rabies, it is 100% lethal unless you are able to get your hands on the vaccine, and only that is like if you do it soon enough. So it is really a really interesting disease. Like it will at some points go dormant and then like your symptoms will kick back up and you'll die within like 2 fucking weeks. And it's just, I think one of the most interesting viruses we have on our planet. And this book was, it wasn't like the most exciting nonfiction I've ever read. The narrative in this isn't like super bold or exciting or anything, but there were a lot of really great facts in this, and like all in all, like I'm not here to complain about it. Like I read it and I thought it was really interesting, so there we go. And while we're talking nonfiction, I also picked up Grunt by Mary Roach. When was this? I think this was a 2016 book. Yeah, 2016. This is by Mary Roach, who, if her name's not familiar to you, you should, you know, take a look at her shit. She writes kind of like science medical nonfiction that is on the bizarre end. She does like to look at the absurdity in things. And I find she brings a certain like light but kind humor to things that might make... that might be sad if you're just like straight up reading about this shit. But this book in particular is about the curious science of humans at war. So she talks about a variety of things like how we use cadavers to test out medical devices that are then used on, you know, veterans who've been injured, or how we've used like smells as like biochemical warfare and shit like that. There's just, it's kind of like rabies, like it's kind of like Rabid. There's just a lot of weird, interesting facts in here. There's even a chapter about genital transplants. Like what more could you ask for? That chapter actually made me a little bit squeamish at points. There's some good body horror in here, I guess, like real life body horror. So yeah, all in all, great book. Great read. I love Mary Roach's shit. At some point, will read all of her stuff, but she truly is a national treasure, I think. She's just so compassionate and kind and humorous without being cruel, and she is just great. She's great. And then last, I said VenCo is my only 5-star read this month, but I forgot that fucking Daphne's right up there too. This was published in 2022. This is by Josh Malerman. And okay, I always do this where I tell you about how I feel about it before you even know the fucking book's about, but this is about a high school girl named Kit, and she is on the basketball team, and really this revolves around, you know, her social network, which is the other girls on the basketball team, right? And one girl at a like sleepover party or something shares the urban legend of Daphne, who was a woman who was disfigured, and she really loved heavy metal, and people made fun of her, and eventually there is this tragic thing that happens where people play a prank on her. It's like totally an 80s movie plot where these cruel people play a prank on her and she dies, and now she's come back to kill people, right? And so like then girls start dying in these weird fucking ways, like their heads are just like crushed to a pulp, not something like a human hand could do. So is Daphne the one killing these girls? I mean, nobody could figure out who else could be doing it. The way that this is written, it feels like it is told by a young girl, you know what I mean? It's not like when Stephen King writes an 8-year-old child who is like too precocious for their own good, you know what I mean? Like this felt like it was an authentic teenage experience, and I really appreciated that. I think some people maybe didn't. It does read like almost like it was written for a younger audience, but it was quite gruesome, and there is a depiction of anxiety disorder in here that like feels so real to me. It's like talking about how, you know, the main character Kit struggles with it, and she talks about how like it's not that the anxiety causes her to worry, it's that she gets anxiety over worrying. She worries about worrying, and that feels like so fucking real to me, you know? And like that's just really resonated with me. Even after this book, it's like, holy shit, like that just is really how I feel, you know? It's not necessarily worrying about the task that I'm worrying about. It's worrying about the task that I'm worrying about, you know? So I really enjoyed that. And like all in all, like this was just so fast paced. I couldn't put this down. I read it in like 2 days. It was just, I fucking gobbled it up, you know? I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to put it down. And I thought it was fantastic. So those are the few books I got through in March. I'd love to know if you've read any of these, what your thoughts were, what your best books of the fucking month were, how March treated you. Was March a good month for you? I hope it was. That is all I have for you though. Thank you all so much for watching. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I will see you guys later. Goodbye.